Now, if there's anything that's more paradoxical, is like these words don't go together. Broken and blessed. I mean, we think they're total opposites. It's like one day I'm broken and I have to let go of that to finally be blessed. And if I'm blessed, I'll never be broken again. So we don't understand that they actually are constantly in presence. The paradox, I am broken, yet I am blessed. I'm constantly just complaining, I'm breaking, I feel alone, God doesn't care. These are all true feelings that many of us feel a lot of the time. And no matter how often we're saying those, and no matter how infrequently we don't hear God on the other side, God will never leave you. God will never leave me. God will never leave us. We all know what it means to be broken, to be shattered, to feel as if our entire world has fallen apart or perhaps been blown apart. We all have had times in our lives when we don't want to raise our heads off the pillow, and we are certain the tears will never stop flowing. We feel a void that cannot be filled, a sorrow that cannot be comforted, a wound for which there seems no balm. Nothing feels blessed about being broken. In fact, certain circumstances life hurts so intensely we think we'll never heal. But blessings can come in the wake of our being broken. They can even be there while we're broken if we'll pay attention. And this blessing is the richest when we not only let ourselves fully experience the brokenness, but also get curious as to why God allowed us to be broken. When we cooperate with God, as it does its refining and transformational work in us, its blessings will follow our brokenness. So how do we get past this brokenness? How do we understand it? Well, first of all, you have to understand, are you hiding the pain or running from the pain? Sometimes we just sit and we feel like it's there and we're nervous. You ever been with somebody you're afraid they're going to call you out or point out something and just hoping they avoid that because you don't want to have to address that with them, et cetera. Or sometimes I just wish I could get away from it all, forget about my troubles and everyone who brought me pain. But the problem is, no matter where you run, you end up right here, right back with your problem. So that doesn't really solve the thing. To remain stable is to refrain from trying to separate yourself from a pain because you know that you cannot. Running away from fear is fear. Fighting pain is pain. Trying to be brave is being scared. If the mind is in pain, the mind is pain. The thinker has no other form than his thought. There is no escape. Alan Watts was a Zen teacher. As we journey through this life, through the easy times and the painful times, God is fashioning us into the people who are like Jesus. That means God is in the process of changing what we desire far more than it is in the process of giving us what we desire. Part of being like Jesus is being willing to do whatever God desires. Not my will, but yours be done. Luke 22:42. Now, if I asked you, do you really want God's best for your life? I feel totally confident that you would say, yes, of course. But if I asked you, are you willing to let God do anything necessary to bring you to total surrender so that it is free to accomplish all that it wants to do for you and all it wants to make out of you? I bet your response wouldn't be, yes, of course. It'd be more like, can I see the contract? But to have God's very best, we must be willing to submit everything to God. Our submission will translate to our growth. And that growth is a process, one that includes setbacks, failures, hard lessons, and yes, brokenness. Our growth includes not only spiritual growth, but also the renewal of our body, heart, and mind. Again and again, we find ourselves being broken so that our old nature might be chipped away, or a rough spot in our character might be sanded smooth. The process may seem painful and difficult. Nevertheless, it is good. Brokenness is not something to be shunned or avoided at all costs. Rather, it is something we are to face with neutrality, curiosity, and openness. If we truly want to be all that God co-designed with us to be, and therefore all that God desires for us to be, we must submit to that plan during the times of brokenness and allow God to reveal to us why we are going through this hard season and what it wants us to learn. So then how do we surrender in the brokenness? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him and he will make your path straight. Now, I agreed to that up to a point. My experience is as I lean into the Lord, I do understand, but I do agree if I lean into my own understanding, I'm usually leaning into a concept or a belief I hold that's blocking me from knowing God. Oh, geez. So how do we do it? Well, one, by facing the obstacles to accept our brokenness. These are all obstacles that we get set in, we don't realize we're in. Self-sufficiency, a focus on doing rather than being. We're constantly focusing on our to-do list. There's always something that our mind needs to jump to, instead of our mind needs to be in union with our heart as we understand how to go forward with our day, with the things to do. Talents and gifts. Maybe we lean on our gifts rather than God. So those gifts might not all be necessarily spiritual. These are, I walk well, I talk well, I do all sorts of things, and I would rather keep reflecting on those rather than reflecting on God. Maybe it's misplaced trust in a separate self. The idea that I am separate and I have control over everything. Wealth, that my trust is in my wealth until we lose it, and then I realize I'm really broken. Maybe it's image and appearance. These go back to the chakras, in which I think about how I look. That might be my second. My accomplishment and reputation, that would be my third, in which I'm now leaning on that. That is how I live. Or wanting to maintain control, blocking all change and healing to stay the same. Brokenness is countercultural. It goes all the way out into the world. So much of brokenness goes against what we are taught in our cultures. We are taught to be self-confident, to make our own plans, set our own goals, to refuse to move or budge from our purposes. So we resist the brokenness feeling we are going to betray or lose our culture or community. Second, we got to let God target the areas to be broken. We can't control where we're broken. God targets those areas in our character that need to be broken, and they're the same in all of us. Strength and weakness, God often targets what we see as a strength in our lives. Why? Because we are much less prone to submit our strengths to God. That's because we think, I can handle this on my own. This is important to me. This strength is important. I need to keep it. We fail to turn to God and seek its help or allow it to lead us, maybe realizing that strength has to subside for a different strength to come to the surface. Attitudes, habits, relationships, if any of these are contrary to what God desires for us, they're subject to being broken. For example, God will always confront idolatry, greed, addictions, racial prejudice, anything you're holding in yourself. It'll force it on you to have you take a look at it. Desires, if we have a strong desire for something to the point where we cling to it and consider it even more valuable than our relationship with God, this desire is subject to being broken. God is our affection, our love, our time, and our desire. God is the number one priority in our lives. And through ethics, we unconsciously ask God to break anything that will block our relationship with God. So God does it even though we didn't know we asked. Because we're saying, I'd like to be the best I can be. That's asking God, change anything that's not making the best I can be. Just know that any rebellion prolongs the process, and that rebellion will always be met by God with an immediate response that will break us more. And remember, while you're broken and changing, yes, your identity is being completely annihilated, but you are not being destroyed. The spirit, God, child that you are, is not at all being destroyed. It's being grown. Miracles start to happen when you give as much energy to God in prayer as you do to your fears. So today I invite you to open up and give this energy. Be broken. Cry for you don't know what reason, but listen to where to go with the pain. Don't just become the pain. What comes through then is a more innocent mind